That gameplay footage was something else, and our hand abilities, incredibly fascinating. However, I'm curious as to what our other 3 abilities are going to be. Hey y'all, I'm the Geek Apprentice, and in today's video, I want to just simply have a discussion about potential other hand abilities. In the beginning, I said there were 3 other abilities, but that's just speculation. But I know it's a speculation that I am not alone in having. Many of us seem pretty sure that the hand abilities we've been shown thus far are not the only ones, but just a glimpse as to what we will get. It's not really based on much, but if you want to tie it to something that could be hidden in the lore, then I would say look at those 7 tear-like symbols around that strange Zonai creature from the 3rd trailer. 7 is a decently common number in Zelda lore, such as having 7 sages or 7 dungeons like in previous games. And clearly there are 7 of these symbols around the Zonai creature, so it could be tied to the hand and the hand abilities, meaning we have 3 more. And that's what I want to discuss. What could these other hand abilities be? Again, emphasizing this is a discussion, not a theory, so definitely make sure you continue the discussion in the comment section below. Let's do a recap of the hand abilities we've been shown. First, we have Recall, which allows us to hone in on an object and send it back in time briefly until it has to go back to its new resting place. Next is Fuse, which is basically a weapon building ability that I'm sure is going to be used in an insane amount of ways, as if the gameplay didn't give us a little hint of that already. Then there's Ultra Hand, which allows us to build vehicles or something else. I mean, this is Zelda fans we're talking about. We already saw what they did in Breath of the Wild. No doubt Nintendo caught wind of that and said, let's just make that a mechanic, and now it's going to be used even more crazily. And the 4th is Ascend, which allows you to ascend from an enclosed space up through the top, no matter how thick it is, as long as there is in fact a ceiling. Now, while I like to fancy myself creative, at least a little bit, considering my job is a dance teacher and choreographer, I don't know anything about game design, or what I do know is extremely little. Just a hint above layman. So I don't really have any guesses out of thin air, but what I do want to look at is other abilities we had in Breath of the Wild. So while I've tried to conjure up some idea of what these other 3 abilities could be, the 4 we have are just so out there, I cannot think of anything else. Not out of the blue maybe, but we could use Relativity by looking at the Sheikah Slate runes and our champion abilities, you know, as a reference. So what were the Sheikah runes? We had Remote Bombs, both square and round, Cryonis, Magnesis, Stasis, Archamera, and Amiibo. Now the first question we have to ask is, are we even going to have access to our Sheikah Slate? Thus far it seems like only Zelda has it, and we don't know where Zelda ends up. Some still theorize she's playable, some people like me are prudes and really hope she's not playable, but if she is, it's not like I'm gonna throw the game away. I'm of course going to play. I just personally don't want her to be playable. So if she is playable, we have access to our Sheikah Slate that way, but if she's not, which I still think is more likely, what do we do with all these runes? Are they just gone for good? Well, it could be that we get the Sheikah Slate later in the game, once we've advanced more, save Zelda in some manner, maybe she's able to give it to us, maybe Robbie or Pura is able to conjure up a new one for us that's fancier. I mean, it does seem like the Sheikah Slate she has doesn't look like the old one, so odds are the tech labs did figure out how to make some new ones. But again, I don't think we'd have them early on. And really, I don't think it would be a good move for Nintendo to base any other hand abilities off of these runes anyway. Seems like a cheap move, you know? Especially when we've already seen that the 4 hand abilities we have are so out there and so crazy and so new. Why would you base anything else on the runes that we had from the last game? People are still up in arms thinking this is just Breath of the Wild 1.5 when it's so clearly its own unique new game, but I digress. Nintendo, I don't think, has done that. Now, of course, I want to make sure we get a Sheikah Slate later on because I do love those remote bombs, but even more so, we've got to get a Sheikah Slate because Amiibo. We know we're going to be able to use Amiibo, and I don't see why they would conjure a way to have Amiibo accessibility with your hand. That doesn't seem story fitting, not that they always put story first, but kind of doesn't make sense. So I think for now, we can really just toss that to the side. Our other hand abilities are not going to have anything to do with the Sheikah Slate runes. One, because it's a new game and that wouldn't make sense to make it based off of old abilities. and 2, because I do think we are going to get access to a Sheikah Slate of some sort later in the game once we've advanced further. But what about our champion abilities? I've definitely seen some discussions that perhaps we get access to something like those with our hand. Small thing, that's 4, not 3, so that would be 8 hand abilities instead of 7, which who says it can't be? But also, similar to the runes on our Sheikah Slate, why would they do this? Coming from a story perspective, those abilities were tied directly to the champions and who they were. Why would it just be conjured up in the Zonai hand? Not to mention, one of them might be a little bit game-breaking, and that's Revali's Gale. Given that we have Sky Islands now, I imagine they want to make it a little tougher to get into the sky, not so easily accessible. Not to mention, I don't think Revali's Gale was able to get you up that high. So that's kind of out. I don't see the need for Urbosa's Fury, as cool as it was. Now, perhaps if the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom is similar to our experience of playing Breath of the Wild for the first time, then I could see a need for Mipha's Grace or Daruk's Protection, but I don't know, something just doesn't feel right about that. But I guess trying to think logically, you can find fairies, or at least I assume you can still find fairies, and those can save you like Mipha's Grace can. And with our Fuse ability, you can make extremely strong shields, and they might not have the same kind of protection as Daruk's protection, but they're a lot stronger than they used to be, I imagine. And extremely similar to the Sheikah Slate rune abilities, why would you create other hand abilities that are just loosely based off of things we already had in Breath of the Wild? That would just be giving more credence to the people who are saying this is not really a new full game, that it's just DLC. I get a little sassy when it comes to those comments. I might need to tone it back a bit. And again, I emphasize in terms of the story, I'm sure there's going to be a reason why we don't have the champion abilities anymore, and it could be because we defeated Calamity Ganon and the spirits moved on, which we saw in that last scene. Well, not really the last scene, depending on if you got all the memories, just like they're gonna have to take away a bunch of other abilities from us. So to recap, if our potential other hand abilities are not going to be like the Sheikah Slate runes, because we might get a Sheikah Slate later, and they're not gonna be like the champion abilities, because that would be kind of cheesy to just base them off of other abilities that we already had in the previous game, then what could they be? I don't know. As aforementioned, I've got creativity, but not when it comes to this stuff, and this is where I want to shoot it to you guys. Tell me in the comment section any crazy ideas you have for what other potential hand abilities could be. I mean, just basing off of what we have so far, the limit is pretty out there. Or maybe do you think there aren't any other hand abilities and what they showed us is what we're gonna get, and that's okay. Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this little discussion video, consider giving the video a like. It really does help the channel out. And of course, consider joining the Geekdom by subscribing. I really haven't done any videos like this in a long time. They've been audio-only recordings. And that's because, as I mentioned in a previous video, Geek Husband and I are going to be preparing to move in early May. So all of this is gonna go away. Not to mention, we're probably going to be moving to a smaller place, so I may not be able to have the same setup I have now. By the way, I do live streams typically on Friday mornings right before I join Game Over Jesse for his podcast, The Highland Gamescast. At the time I'm recording this, I'm about to finish Ocarina of Time, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. Everyone wants me to do Twilight Princess because I always start it and then I don't finish it. I don't know why, but I kind of want to do Minish Cap because now I have access to it. And I really want to play it. I've never played it before, and I've heard so many good things about it, and I'm not really into 2D Zelda games, but that seems like one I could get into. So if you are a subscriber, whether a new one or an old one, make sure you have the notification bell turned on so that you can be alerted when I do go live. And of course, a huge shout out and thank you to all of my channel members and patrons, especially those in the Hylian Knight tier over on Patreon: Joking Batman, Geek Mom, Lorulian Sheep, McToppler, and Charles. Thank you all so much for your support. It means a lot. If you'd like to see how you could get some pretty cool perks and help the channel out, please consider going to patreon.com/thegeekapprentice or hitting the join button below the video.